Hey everybody, welcome back to Music Com Academy. This is a really special day for me and hopefully for you too, because this is lesson 100. I would have never thought in the beginning of this. I thought maybe there'd be like 45 or 50 of them. Maybe at the outset, maybe I might hit 60 lessons. But we're at 100 lessons and pushing almost 900 PDs and radio people from around the world that are subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, that would be great. But even if you haven't, if you've just been watching, I just want to tell you that, man, I really appreciate that you've been watching and giving feedback and, just following along and hopefully learning something along the way. I'm trying to give something back. I mean, I would have never dreamed that, an old guy like me, like I mentioned, I just turned 75. Like I shouldn't be doing this. I should be, probably, rolling around in a wheelchair or something like that, much less, doing a YouTube channel and editing and all that sort of stuff. But, it's nice to feel that you can still contribute something and all that. So this is going to be a very, very different kind of lesson. This may be, at least in my mind, the most important thing that I ever kind of learned or hit on or whatever along the way, and it started at a pretty young age and it carried me through my entire career. And I would say this is probably at least 70% of the reason why I was pretty successful in radio. But it doesn't have anything really to do with radio. It doesn't really matter at all. But boy, when the rubber hit the road in a lot of instances and I had to make hard decisions and I had to do different things, I would always fall back on this. I would think about it and then, and then do whatever I needed to do, not what I was supposed to do. That's a big one. I did what I was needed to do for me, okay, to, further a career or to just have a better life, which is basically what anybody really wants. So let's roll that opener and let's get to it. I'm going to tell you three stories. One happened in 1966 when I first got into radio. Yeah, that's a long time ago. And then about maybe 6 years after that, there was another conversation that intertwined with the first one. And then somewhere around 2002, like, whatever that is, 30 years later, I had something else happen to me, again, intertwined with this. And it just kept reinforcing the same thing that I'm about to describe to you. Now, what this is about really is, generally speaking, it is about retiring after your career. Okay, so you're like, well, hold on a second. This is a radio channel about people who are just starting out in their career. What are you telling me about retirement for now? Like, what's the deal with that? Well, it's because if you are at a point somewhere along the way in your life where you know that you can retire or you can quit a job, that's a big one, because you will work for pinheads. You will work for people who are terrible people. Or they're nice people, but they don't know anything, which ultimately makes your job hard. You'll be in instances where you want to leave, but most people can't because they're not set up for retirement. And I don't mean, pulling the plug entirely. I mean being able to just walk away and say, hey, screw you, and be totally fine with that, not only yourself, but also financially. And I'll explain that more as we go forward. So I get into radio in 1966, and there is a guy who's in the newsroom who had been making today's equivalent of about $400,000 to $500,000 a year for about 15 years straight. He was, an anchor on one of the major radio networks across the United States, and he's in this tiny little station in a tiny little town making no money, and he's broke. He's totally broke, and he was an alcoholic. So, I remember as a kid, and, at this point, I'm probably like 17 and a half, and I'm watching him, and I'm going, man, I do not want to end up like this guy. So now let's flash forward. Now I'm at CKOW, and, I'm a jock, and was over to somebody's house. I think it was actually Bill Gable, and there was a bunch of the jocks there. And somehow we started talking about, retiring. I don't know why people in their early 20s would be talking about retirement, but that's what we did. And there may have been pharmaceuticals involved. But we're kicking around things and what would you want to do, and when would you want to pull the plug, what age, and all of that stuff. And then we came up with a number, and we started figuring like, well, what's a number that if you could have that as an income every single year, okay, that you would be happy. You could retire. Not that you're going to retire like an amazing luxury, but you can retire and you're going to be fine. You can just do whatever you want. It's like summer vacation as a kid again. And the number was $40,000. Okay, we thought, oh my God, if we could have an income of $40,000, that'd be amazing. And let me tell you one more story that really put me over the edge on this entire concept that I'm going through today. It was like 2002. I had become the manager in Toronto of the Toronto clusters for Standard Radio. And I'm single at this point, and I just wanted to learn Spanish. This is before I lived in Argentina and Uruguay and Spain and a whole bunch of other places, okay? But there's something about the Spanish language I just like. I was trying to learn it on my own, with books and other things, and I just couldn't grasp how different words have like 4 or 5, 6 different endings on them, and the endings change the tense dramatically. I can't understand this. I just can't grasp it. So I decided, I'm going to go and learn Spanish for a couple weeks just so I can get by that hump to see if I can ever learn Spanish, which, I got through the hump and I did learn Spanish. I'm not great at it, probably, I'm about maybe a 6-year-old level, but that's more than enough to get you through almost anything. So anyway, I decided to go to the school in Cuernavaca, Mexico. It's about an hour and a half outside of Mexico City. I wanted to just really feel the whole deal, so I went and lived with a Mexican family, with them in their homes, 2 meals a day. And so it's room and board. So I got breakfast, I got dinner, old couple who had the house. And then there was this other building that they had, and it was just cement block. That's all it was. Like, my bedroom had a bed, it had a chair, it had a lone light bulb on the ceiling that would be swinging on a cord, okay? And it would actually, see that shadow on my face? It would actually look like this. If the wind blew, you'd see that they go like this, because it's just a light bulb. And the ceiling is like this brick thing. There's nothing on it. It's just pure cement. I mean, it's like a jail cell. And I thought, okay, whatever, no problem. And she cooked amazing meals. It was like, she was doing Mexican dishes I had never seen before, and it was delicious. But here's the thing. It cost $15 a day to live with this family. Then you take $15 a day times 365 days in the year, and I don't know, somewhere around $5,400, $5,500. That's it. That's the extent of what you need. Now, I mean, I wouldn't say this is, a great life, but somebody's feeding you, and you have a roof over your head, and, you have a place to live, and it was safe and all that sort of stuff. But it puts a floor under, this is as bad as it can get for you if you have enough to pay that. If you can pay $6,000 a year, that's as bad as it gets. And I got to tell you, it wasn't all that bad. I liked living with those, with the old couple. I loved the lady's food, and I could deal with the cement, the cement walls. It didn't really matter to me. Hardly in the room at all. We're out kind of walking the city and seeing things and all that sort of stuff. So what I'm kind of describing, really, if you're young, is basically a digital nomad's life. I mean, that's pretty much what hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of digital nomads do all over the world right now. They go to Bali, and you can live in Bali. You can have an amazing life in Bali for $25,000 US. I mean, you're in a beautiful apartment, with where the food is super cheap. Same thing if you're in Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia, and a whole bunch of different countries. So, but when I went back to work after that, I didn't care about the pressure. It just didn't bother me, and my boss, the owner of the company, he was pushing for a lot of stuff. And I think for a lot of people, they maybe couldn't handle it, but I could handle it because, in a pinch or when something got really super amount of pressure or whatever, I just think back and go, you know what? No problem. I could go live with this old couple again. Again, would I really want to do that? Not really, but I knew that I could. Okay. And that's the whole point of it. It's backup. Super, super backup. I saw this map yesterday, which, kind of prompted me to do this lesson, because I've been just trying to decide, man, for the 100th lesson, what do I do? And I think this is incredibly important to you. A guy who deals with expats, people who retire in other parts of the world, and he did a video on, you'll be surprised at how cheap it is to live in different parts of the world. And he threw up Europe, and I was sort of shocked at this. And he was comparing it against the United States. So he's showing all of Europe, and he's showing Great Britain that would be more expensive than living in the United States. And Switzerland is on that map, and Liechtenstein and one other tiny little country. All the rest of Europe was cheaper to live there than it is today living in the United States. You want to live in France, you want to retire in Italy, you want Germany, doesn't matter, Spain for sure, Spain, Malta, all the countries of all over Europe, it's cheaper by about a third than to actually live in the United States. So what you think you need to retire on, okay, is actually less if you aren't here or you move somewhere else. When we come to Orlando and live here for basically the winter, okay, the expenses, the total overall expenses are about 1/3 less than living in Toronto, and that's counting the exchange rate. It's still a third cheaper. When we were in Panama and Argentina and Uruguay, it becomes even 1/3 more cheaper than being in the United States. Some places it can be up to a half cheaper. So all of a sudden, if 40,000 is the number, you're looking at 20 grand. Why am I telling you this again? Because why am I talking about retirement? Because when you take that $40,000 number and you start to get close to it, you start to have a feeling of serenity and confidence that if you catch a boss that's, a nutcase, or somebody who's just riding you, or you just want to gamble on your career, like I did this a lot of times. I would gamble. Somebody would offer me a job at a horrible radio station, but it had a signal, but they were totally screwed up. And it's like, man, do I take this radio station that's on the bottom of the market? I'm walking into, like, this is station number 40 out of 40 radio stations. Do I do this? But if I can make this thing go up, man, I'm going to look like a hero and I'm going to be awesome. But, I got to gamble on this thing. It was so much easier to gamble because I was already farther along on having enough money that would generate the 40 grand. I mean, I was nowhere near it, but I could certainly handle 6 months without a job or 9 months without a job. And this is with a wife and 2 kids, okay? And 2 little kids. So it gives you confidence to do things that other people just won't do, because for other people, it's like this. You got to stay. You got to pay for this. You got to pay for that. You got to pay for your mortgage. You can't leave. That's kind of what ends up happening. So I'm telling you what I'm describing, and I'm going to do the math on it, okay? It's just one of those things that you should do if you're young, and if you're still like maybe, in your late 40s, early 50s, coming up on retirement, you still got another 10, 15 years to kind of, do this, you can kind of catch it. So when we were over to Bill Gable's apartment and we came up with this $40,000 figure, at the time, the interest rates were pretty much around 10%. That was really easy to get. Every bank would give you that or more. So therefore, you only needed 400 grand. 10% of 400,000 is 40 grand. That's what you'd get every year. Now, you're going to need like $800,000 because you're only going to get 5% to get 40 grand. And that's a daunting number. So immediately it's like, whoo, man, I don't know about that. How's that going to work? How am I going to get $800,000 of savings? Again, part of this is going to be your home. So if you're in Toronto, a house is going to be worth $1 million or $800,000 or $1.2 million, somewhere in that range, depending how much money you have already paid on it. If it's paid off, for sure you're over $1 million. But let's assume that you don't have any house and you're just going for savings. So let me show you some things that sort of make this look a little bit easier. Now let me show you this. This is off the Social Security site. So this is real numbers from Social Security if you're in the US. I'm going to do Canada in a second too. You can do your own country if you're not in either the US or Canada. So if you retire at full retirement age in 2023, your maximum benefit would be $3,627 per month. Now if you do it at age 62, it's going to be $2,500. So why don't we just get somewhere in the middle here? So you're going to get $3,000. Now let's go to the Canadian one. Same deal. This is from the Canada's CPP retirement pension website. This is way lower though. You know, it's funny. You can work the same amount of time for the same amount of pay, same amount of everything in the United States, and you end up getting 2 to 3 times more for your retirement than you do in Canada. Don't know why that is, but it is. Maximum monthly amount you could receive as a new recipient, age 65, $1,300. That's a long way from that $3,000. And the average monthly amount paid for a new retirement at age 65 and 22 is $717. Let's just assume that the number that the Canadian government is going to give you is probably going to be somewhere around $1,000 a month. So let's go back now and let's make this US and Canada. You have $3,000 a month times 12 months, 36 grand. And for Canada, it was $1,000 times 12 months, $12,000. But you're looking for this 40. If you're in the US, you're virtually there already. You almost didn't have to save anything. If you're in Canada, now I'm going to have to wheel this down into US dollars because I'm talking about US dollars here. So let's just take this formula and I'll take it one more time and I'll divide that by the current exchange rate, which is going to be 1.34. And you're going to need, like, let's just round this out to $9,000. Okay? You're going to need 9,000 US to keep it equal. That number for a US person is 40 grand minus what Social Security is going to give you, 4 grand. That's it. And if you're Canadian, you have that 40 grand that you're shooting for minus the 9,000 that the Canadian government is going to give you. You got 31,000 to go. Okay? That didn't do a whole lot to change things. But let's keep going. You have $4,000 you still need to deal with for the US and $31,000 in US dollars for Canada if you want to hit that 40,000 US number. Let me stop here for a second and just show you some things that I think you'll be interested in, that because I know there'll be some people that are saying, well, how do you get 5%? A lot of banks are only giving you 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that. But watch this. These are stock prices and dividends, and I just got these yesterday, so you know they are what they are. Just keep watching over here, this section right here, dividend yield. See it? Dividend yield. IBM, not a slouch company. It's like it's not, not fly-by-nighter. 4.84. Let's go to this one. This is Annaly Capital Management. It's a monstrous size REIT, real estate investment trust in the United States. There's 2 big ones. There's Annaly and there's also AGNC, which I'm going to show you. And let's see what this one is doing. What do they do for a dividend? Oh my God, 15.9%. That's what they're giving as a dividend, 15.9%. And a dividend is essentially interest, okay? Let's get off of the REIT for a second and go to Altria. Altria owns Marlboro and a whole bunch of other cigarettes. I don't think in the last 40 years they have ever missed a dividend, and their dividends just keep going up year after year after year, the amount that they actually give. Probably because of inflation and other things. But look what their dividend yield is over here. Take a look at this. Dividend yield, 8.9%. So they're doing 8%. Here's the AGNC one, the other REIT, and their dividend yield is 12.27. Okay, let's keep going. Walgreens, huge drugstore chain in the United States, 5.21. So they're over 5%. Verizon, 6.45. This is the biggest telephone company in the United States. They're paying 6.5 roughly. TELUS, this is a Canadian telephone company out in the western part of Canada. They're paying 5%. Philip Morris, another tobacco company, 5%. 3M in Minnesota, MMM, they've been around forever. Big company, giant company as a matter of fact. They make Post-it notes and a million other things that you use. 5.12%. They're at 5%. Intel, 5.12. So there's lots of companies and lots of ways to make 5% on your money. It's not unheard of. I see so many people, commentators on TV, and so many articles, and they say, well, in order to, live the lifestyle that you're doing and everything else, and you want to retire, you're going to need $1 million. Or $1.2 million or $1.3 million. And that is true if you want to do exactly what you're doing right now. you're probably going to need that much money. But so many things happen when you retire. One, you usually, get out of the big home. You for sure don't drive as much. You don't buy so many clothes. You don't do all the things. Your lifestyle dramatically changes, okay? There's retirement with no change exactly the way things are, which most people can't do. And then there's retirement where you go like, I like my life. I'm fine with it. I'm pretty good. Usually that will entail selling your home, moving to a rental or a smaller condo out of a big city, and you go somewhere where your life is great. That's why so many people come to Florida, because it's cheaper in Florida than a lot of other places. Same thing with Texas. Things are reasonably priced. The number one destination in the world for retirees at this point in time is Panama. They have more people retire there from the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, all over the world. They go to Panama because it's safe, it's friendly, it's cheap. The food there is really, really, really cheap, and it's great food. Their medical care is really good. That's a big one. A lot of people, when they go to retire, they go, ooh, I don't want to leave North America because the medical care sucks somewhere else. Well, you know what? That's totally wrong, because there is a monstrous amount of countries, pretty much all of Europe, almost all of Asia. You go to India, you go there, and the medical care there is actually better than here for like, I don't know, a tenth of the price. A lot of times you don't even need insurance, health insurance, because it's so reasonably priced, and the doctors are US trained or British trained, speak English, they're fantastic. That's kind of the way the real world is, not the way people tell you it is. But back to this, okay? So we want to make up this $4,000, and we can, like I just showed you, you can do it at 5%. So what do you need? What do we need to get this $40,000 number to say $4,000? I think it's 80 grand. Let's just fill this in. Yeah. Okay, so that's what you need. You need 80 grand. You need to save 80 grand or have $80,000 into your home and condo. That's how much you've paid down. And there's your retirement. There's the $40,000. Even if this was 50 grand, let's just make this 50 grand. And so you have your entire life from now till, you retire to save up in some way. Again, it could be what you have in your home, $300,000, at which point you can now retire on $50,000, and you can go an enormous amount of places around the world where you are going to have a stunning life. You can be living on a beach. You can literally, I'll give you an example. There's a beach town called Coronado. A lot of expats. I would probably say 40% of the people that live there are American or Canadian. Okay, and it's in Panama, and it's right on the Pacific Ocean. These people are in 2 or 3 bedroom condos that if they had a baseball on their balcony overlooking the ocean and threw it, the ball would land in the ocean. That's how close they are. If they were anywhere in North America, those condos would be, I don't know, they'd probably be paying well over $1 million, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 US, or way more. There, if you wanted to buy one, you're buying one for like $250,000, $275,000, or you're renting, and the rent would be somewhere around $800 a month. Everything I just described, you could do the exact same thing in Thailand, Chiang Mai, Bangkok, a whole bunch of cities. Take it down to like $500 or $600. But again, you have to change your thinking, when you get out of North America. Now, the only reason I'm going through this, which is mainly about retirement, is I just want you to see a number to shoot for, so that when you're midway through your career, you can say, hey, I'm not at my full number where I can retire and call it a day and tell somebody to screw off, but I'm halfway there, and now I have backup. This guy, he gave me a realistic number that I can shoot for, and I'm shooting for it. I'm a third of the way there. I'm 40% of the way there. I'm halfway there. I'm happy, and I can weather pretty much any storm. Let's see if we can hit this 40,000 number with the Canadian numbers. If we make that 650, we're at that 31,000. So you need 650, in the bank, in investments, or in your home in order to do it. High odds that if you're in Canada and you have any kind of home or condo that you own, you're going to be really close to this 650 number or over it Or let's just say maybe you have 400,000 that you've paid into it. Well, if you have 4, that means now looking at this number, you only have to worry about another 250. So much of a simpler number than trying to shoot for $1 million. 250 is not insurmountable. $1 million, like for so many people, that's a pipe dream. Even 250 is not going to be easy for some people, but it's achievable. Kind of a long lesson, but I really think it's important to you if you're starting in your career, so that you can handle your career, because the radio industry, just media in general right now, it's super cutthroat. I mean, you're going to go work for a company, they really high odds that they could care less about you. You're just a number, you're just like a piece of meat, and they don't care. And they will jettison you out into no man's land. And if you don't have any backup, you're screwed. You are totally screwed. And I'm sure it's that way in a whole bunch of different industries. And they got that new AI chat GPT. You probably see that a lot. People start talking about that thing where basically it's artificial intelligence that can do a whole bunch of things where all of a sudden there's going to be a lot of people out of work, like even computer programmers, because the thing will just, it'll write a program for you. Just sort of describe what you want. Boom, it spits out the code and you're done. And that takes like maybe, 30, 40 seconds. How do you think that's going to work out? Oh my God. So back up, man. Back up, back up, back up, back up. I can't say it enough. It's like real estate, location, location, location. For a job, back up, back up, back up, back up. Anyway, I hope this helps, and I hope I didn't bore you much, but I really think it's important, and that's why I made it the 100th lesson of Musicom Academy. And for those of you who have been along for the ride, thank you so much. It's really, really awesome that you're here. And we're shooting for now for the 900 mark and ultimately 1,000 subscribers, which again is a big thing for YouTube. So until that next lesson, again, thank you very much, and see ya!